Hey everybody, welcome to day 21, where we're going to be looking through this outline that we're coming up with, filling in the blanks of anything that's not there yet, and very deliberately avoiding being boring. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button below, go ahead and click it now, and then whatever it is you're drinking today, go ahead and grab a cup, cozy up, and let's get to writing. For almost a week now, we have been working on this outline document, and hopefully we're getting to the point where all of our ideas are in it and we're starting to clean up the messiness a little bit, so it's starting to read a little bit more coherently. Now what I want to focus on today is when we read through that list, identifying where there are gaps and coming up with the best ways we can to fill them. So what I mean by this is now as we're looking through the list, I want you to look through and identify places where the ideas jump, if they don't move smoothly into each other. So for example, if idea 10 on the list has your characters on the West Coast, and then all of a sudden the next idea is a scene that's on the East Coast, we need to have a transition that gets them from the West to the East and do it in a way that is not boring. I find that these transition scenes are usually the worst ones. So especially when characters need to travel, when they need to get from point A to point B, we tend to think, and I call this engineer brain, when we tend to think that we have to hit every step of the process to describe to the reader exactly how they got there. But storytelling doesn't necessarily have to be that way. If there's something exciting at point A and something exciting at point B, you don't have to tell the boring tale that gets you between the two. You just have to give a brief summary of the fact that your characters have moved. And I have had this exact situation happen to me when I was writing my first book, which you guys may not know, it took me 5 years to write it and another 7 years of editing before I actually published it. But in my first draft of it, I had my characters were somewhere and I needed them to be somewhere else. And so I wrote this whole long trip and I tried to make it exciting. Like I tried to throw some cute things in there, but it totally fell flat because the readers were taking part in this really exciting plot line. And then all of a sudden, right in the middle of it, there's like this weird travel scene where for an entire chapter they're just traveling, trying to get to the next place, and there was nothing I could add to make it interesting enough because it wasn't part of the main plot. And that was one of the big scenes that I had to delete. I mean, it was like a whole chapter and deleting it was hard, but that is why I'm telling you guys now, as you're planning this out, don't spend a lot of time on travel unless the travel itself is actually part of the plot, part of the conflict. Don't have your characters spend a lot of time in transit just because we think with our engineer brains that we need to explain every step of the process, and if it's a long trip that we would somehow need to make that longer within our story. That's not how it needs to be. Definitely cut that down as much as you can unless there is something very exciting and plot driving that happens during the trip. So a really good rule of thumb to keep in mind as you go through this list and you start filling in the spots that are missing is don't get to the party early. So what I mean by that is if your characters are all going to a party and you as the writer know that something really exciting is going to happen at that party, don't have your characters show up an hour early to the party and have to do boring things until the party starts. You want them to get there right as the action happens, right as something starts to play out before their eyes that is exciting for the reader to read. Don't get there too early because then your characters just have to do silly things for half an hour as they wait for the action to happen. And I'm speaking metaphorically when I say early. Even if your characters are right on time, that can be too early. It's too early if the action doesn't happen for another 20 minutes. Have them show up right when the interesting stuff happens. So try to keep that in mind as you go through this outline of ideas and start filling in the holes of what's missing. So hopefully at this point, your idea outline is looking a lot cleaner than it was. It's starting to read coherently. What I want you guys to do for today's homework is to go through and fill in anything that's missing. So anything where your characters need to get from one scene to the next, try to brainstorm a creative and exciting way that you can get your characters from point A to point B. And if it's just travel time, cut it down to like a paragraph. Cut it down as much as you possibly can. And as you fill in those plot holes and those empty spaces where story needs to happen, your entire outline should start to read actually really smoothly. So give it your best go and actually try to fill in all of the missing pieces today so that by tomorrow, your outline actually reads from beginning to end like a solid story. I'm gonna jump off and do the same. I know that I have a lot of holes that I need to fill in mine. Also, still a little bit of conflicting ideas that I'm working out. So if you are not completely done with that, don't worry, neither am I. why. I'm still working on it too. So go ahead and click that subscribe button below if you haven't already, and then I will see you guys tomorrow for day 22 of the 60-day novel writing challenge.